this road. It used to be the main road, two-way lorries and stuff. Since then, there's just been a small landslip, everybody's panicked, and now the local council is wondering whether it should do, in fact, it is doing a risk assessment on the possibility of opening that back up to light traffic running in one direction. Truly, we did things in the past that we wouldn't allow ourselves to do now, because somehow or other it's all too difficult. I think I invite you to consider that Scotland can actually do this. It isn't difficult. Get rid of them. We can run the ship ourselves. We're well equipped to do so. Thank you.
Well done, Nigel.
I'd like to thank Mr. Don
Well done.
for his speech and invite Mr. Rennie to give his speech for the opposition.
I believe it was the monks who established golf in St Andrews. I'm not sure the monks would be too impressed to be compared with Donald Trump. And Mr. Don might have to explain himself to Rome very, very quickly, unless he might come to some demise as a result of the Cardinal's wishes in Scotland. But what you heard from Mr. Don was basically a negative story about the United Kingdom. He had very little positive to say about Scotland. He talked about nuclear weapons, he talked about nuclear power, he talked about culture, he talked about England and Wales being different. What he didn't talk about is what Scotland is and how great it is because we're with the United Kingdom. That is why Scotland is great, and that is something that the SNP and those who support independence are incapable of seeing. It is important to recognise when we've got it good, when we have the best of both worlds, and certainly Scotland has got that. Of course, it's quite normal to be a small country. There are many, Belgium, Holland, many countries throughout the world that are small and they're perfectly successful. Denmark, quite wealthy nations. What's not normal is to break yourself up, to become small. That's modern successful countries don't break themselves up to become small nations. If you look around the world, you could say that Quebec came close, but they didn't do it. Spain, with Catalonia, is thinking about it, but they're not there, and the polls show they probably won't win. They just want a referendum. If you look at Eastern Europe, these countries certainly weren't modern successful countries. The former Soviet Union was on its knees. They had nothing to lose when they became small countries. So not modern successful countries. If you look at Norway and Sweden, they broke up well before the creation of the global markets, well before the creation of the welfare state. They were not modern. They were perhaps successful at the time, but they were not modern successful countries. If you look around the world, there are no examples, and that's the problem that those who propose independence have, because they cannot provide a rule book. They cannot provide any kind of certainty. And I hear what Nigel Don says about it's an uncertain world, so why bother with a little bit more uncertainty? Well, I think we're all under quite a bit of stress just now with the recession. We're all under quite a bit of stress with trying to get our finances back in order. What we don't need is more uncertainty to compound that uncertainty. That is the fundamental difficulty that those who support independence have. Look at the great things also about what the United Kingdom has done for us here in Scotland. Us together, in partnership with them. The creation of the BBC, done by a Scot, for the whole of the United Kingdom. Look at the pension, the welfare state, the NHS. They were all creative institutions created by the United Kingdom, by us partners working together. Now, if we can do creative things in the past, we can do them again, and that's without doubt. So why break up that creative partnership, that ability to do great things in the world? And many other countries have followed those examples. So those are the things that we should value. The clout in the world, our ability to have weight and say and influence all over the world. Now, of course, they'll say, we disagree with many of the decisions on things like Iraq. And I accept that. I disagreed with it. But I would rather be in there, having an influence, having a say, making sure that our voice was heard within the United Kingdom. One of those great, big in a second, one of those great, big, influential powers in the world, clout in the world, really important. Patrick Harvie.
Thank you. Willie Rennie is keen to suggest what our response will be to this argument. My response would be not to focus on one individual instance like Iraq, tragic and brutal though that decision was, but where we have a shared interest between Scotland and the rest of the UK, we will always still be able to speak with a combined voice. It's where our interests diverge that we need the freedom to speak for ourselves. Where our interests diverge, what is the point in asking a UK minister who will always represent the bigger partner south of the border to speak on our behalf?
George. And it's a fair point. You could be splendid in isolation.
No.
You could have purity where it's only your voice that speaks. that could certainly be the case. But I would rather have an influence over the big neighbour, have an influence over the neighbour that's got a big say in the world. I would rather make sure that Scottish values were imposed, were inserted in the debate within the United Kingdom. To extract that from that position is losing influence, is losing control, is losing our opportunity for Scotland and Scotland's values to be imposed and to be influenced across the world. To deny us, to withdraw that influence, I think would be a mistake. And the economic strength. I mean, the United Kingdom, one of the biggest economies in the world. All economies are going through stress just now, but one of the biggest economies in the world. And we should recognise that with one of the most successful single markets, that is something that we should not lose. And if you look at influence, if you look at the pound, the proposals for the currency that's coming forward from those who support independence just now, they are suggesting that we have a pound run by a central bank, run from a foreign country.
Briefly.
Okay.
I'm sure you wouldn't wish to inadvertently mislead the audience. Would you make it clear, please, that the proposals you're referring to are from the SNP? They don't represent all of the views of those who support independence.
On day one, my understanding is that is exactly what is proposed.
What the SNP propose.
Suggest, and the SNP, whether Patrick likes it or not, whether I like it or not, the SNP are in charge. They will be taking us through this process. On day one, we will be in a currency trapped, controlled by a foreign government, by the remainder of the United Kingdom. That is the reality that Patrick has to face up to. Now, if you look at also then the opportunities that we have in Scotland to do great things in the future, renewable energy, one of the big opportunities for Scotland, big opportunity. We're trying to get, and I think I agree with the SNP on this, trying to get to 100% of our electricity produced from renewables. I support that. I think it's a great ambition to have. But that is being supported just now on the backs of British energy consumers. Why would we reduce that opportunity, that economic might, that economic opportunity, by just getting Scots to finance that renewable opportunity? That would be denying Scotland an opportunity to achieve much more. Also, here, universities. Scottish universities punch well above their weight on the research assessment. They achieve... That was obviously the trick that Nigel Don missed out. But we achieve so much in our universities. The research capability within our universities is tremendous. We get from the research councils in the UK way above our population share of financial support. Why throw away that opportunity to get access to that great financial clout? These are the big opportunities that Scotland would have by being part of the United Kingdom in the future. So we've had great things in the past with the BBC, the welfare state, the pension. These are great things, the NHS, that we've done together in the past. We've got economic clout by being together in the United Kingdom. We've got clout throughout the world. We're able to influence the world through the United Kingdom. But we've also got big opportunities in the future with the United Kingdom. I think it's better to have the best of both worlds, the best of Scotland and our culture and our opportunities here, while being in partnership with the rest of the United Kingdom. That is the future for Scotland that I want, and that's the future of Scotland I hope you want too. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and I'm very grateful for the invitation to come and speak to you. We've heard from Mr. Rennie that it's wrong to stand in splendid isolation. Much better to give up some of your purity in exchange for influence over a bigger partner. I think perhaps the story of Mr. Rennie's party over the last few years is a different story. But why Mr. Rennie is so worried. I can understand why he holds this fear of being trapped and confined, because that's clearly where his colleagues are at the moment. He tells us we've got it good.
Wait for a minute, Pat.
He tells us... Bring it on. He tells us Scotland, we've got it good. Let's just bear in mind Scotland's reality. We are not in this country all enjoying a pleasant evening in a well-funded university, in a delightful town like St Andrews. We're not. We have chronic statistics on poverty and ill health in Scotland. We have a poorer economic record than the rest of the UK, despite economic assets. Albeit, I would like to shift to the renewable assets instead of Mr. Don's fossil fuel assets. But we've had those economic assets and we haven't gained the benefit of them. We're seeing at the moment a UK government that's committed to draconian cuts and to the dismantling of some of the institutions that Willie Rennie tells us we should be valuing. The privatisation and breaking up of the National Health Service. I think if it was happening in Scotland, it would have people out on the streets, intolerant of that kind of agenda. But that's what they're doing south of the border to the NHS. And of course, as Nigel Don has reminded us, we have, sitting in the Clyde, weapons which most people in this country find offensive, weapons which our courts have found to be illegal, and we can do nothing about the removal of those weapons of mass destruction. I don't think we have it nearly good enough in Scotland. Now, the Green position is not a nationalist one. I want to explain why you can take a position on this debate, this independence debate, without being a nationalist. Not everyone on the yes side will be a Scottish nationalist, and I certainly wouldn't accuse everyone on the no side of being a British nationalist. Nationalism is a political tradition that I don't feel a part of. My politics are not defined by national identity. My politics are defined by, my movement is brought together by a different range of issues, economic, environmental and social. I give way to Mr. Rennie.
But does Mr. Harvie not recognise that by pandering to the independence cause, he's potentially unleashing the forces of nationalism that have been so detrimental to countries across the globe? Does he not regret that?
I don't feel that I'm pandering to anything. My party has long supported independence, and you